Farm Network.
The following is a sponsored program paid for by Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group, RE/MAX Results. Welcome to Rochester Real Estate, featuring Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group, RE/MAX Results, and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning, Andy Brownell, News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Saturday morning, usually with Robin Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group RE/MAX Results, but she is, well, let's put it that way. She's probably having fun. But in her stead, a member of the Gwaltney Group team, Zach Pagel, with us this morning. And welcome back, Zach.
Thank you, Andy. Great to be here.
Always great to talk to you. Once again, another very knowledgeable member of the Gwaltney Group team. And I guess we're not that far away. I mentioned this to Robin last week, the way time flies. We're only a little bit over a month away from the start of the spring real estate season. Is that about right?
That is right, and it's already starting to feel like it, including multiple Huffer scenarios coming right out of the gate in this new year.
Already, wow. So if I'm that person who, hey, I want to take advantage of the spring market, especially in Rochester with all the, influx and exodus of certain Mayo Clinic folks. Or is there anything I should be thinking about right now? I mean, I suppose I should be calling you right now.
Absolutely. And we are here anytime to help. I think the biggest step to take initially is getting in touch with a trusted agent. So really want to make sure it's someone that you can communicate well with, that's giving you a ton of great information and really making you feel supported throughout the entire process. And that's not just for, when a home pops up online and you want to go see it, but actually to understand truly what it is that you're looking for, because a lot of our inventory is moving before it even hits the market. And only way to get access to those properties is through an agent that knows they exist.
And that's the one thing that is really advantageous about Gwaltney Group is because of your footprint in the Rochester market, you have access to a lot of those pre- or unlisted properties.
That's correct. Last year, we were able to sell over $110 million in volume, and a good portion of that was off-market inventory. So how it really functions is we have a list of buyers out there that we can understand what constitutes a dream property for them, and a list of sellers as well that maybe aren't in a position to want to place their property on the open market and have someone come through. But if the right buyer came along, are people that are interested in maybe having a further discussion. So it can be advantageous for both parties to make that match and not have to compete with anyone else as a buyer and not have to take all the steps to prepare your home for a listing on the open market as a seller.
Oh, man, yeah, I can see the advantage as a seller for sure.
Yeah, don't have to clean it and get it ready for pictures in the same way and find somewhere to go.
Yeah, come on over and take a look. But
Exactly.
You mentioned finding an agent that you trust and feel comfortable with. Are there, I guess, questions that you would recommend asking if you're a person looking to connect with an agent at Gwaltney Group?
Absolutely. I think a big question to ask would be around communication style. I know there's a lot of different types of buyers out there. Some more digital forward where, they're comfortable, especially if they're relocating to Rochester from somewhere, seeing a property over FaceTime or having a YouTube video film for them and finding an agent who can really provide that service and be their eyes on the ground when maybe the first time they're seeing the property is at that pre-closing walkthrough. Other people maybe want real estate in that more old-fashioned way that they're used to and want an agent who can provide that service to them. So I think it really depends on what someone's looking for, and communication is a big part of that. Experience, obviously an important factor as well. And luckily on the Gwaltney Group, we have a lot of experienced agents. And as Robin talked about, I believe on last week's show, the experience really spans all sorts of different areas. So it's not just real estate and buying and selling, but we have folks on our team really experienced in the trades, so know a lot about things that could pop up during an inspection or remodeling. We have folks, including myself, with a lot of knowledge in the commercial and development side too. So really have a whole toolbox there for our Gwaltney Group buyers and sellers to tap into our knowledge.
I imagine when you're working with a client and something might fall outside your expertise, you shoot off an email or make a phone call to another member of the team to fill in, right? I mean, not necessarily take over, but to provide you the information that you can share with that person.
Yeah, and that's really helpful benefit of working with such a large and experienced team. It's not costing anything more financially to a buyer or seller, but the amount of knowledge and manpower you're gaining in the process is really exponential.
There's something you said earlier, Zach, about people using our technology to find and purchase a house from a distance away, another part of the country or even the world. And I'm one of those old-fashioned folks who, but that fascinates me. How do you provide them the information that can make them comfortable when they're thousands of miles away, perhaps, and they're going to make their home here and are trusting you with that decision?
That's a great question. And I think it starts with talking directly with the agent as a buyer so that there's a mutual understanding of what's important to that buyer. And by doing that, you can gain a really good feel for whether or not a home is going to be a good fit for their overall goals. And I know it's not just a property, as we know, that makes all the difference in being the right place, but it's a neighborhood, it's a setting, it's proximity to especially employment in Rochester. I know some of those things aren't going to immediately jump out to someone who's unfamiliar with the area. It's really understanding what's important and maintaining full transparency and honesty throughout the process. Our goal is not to sell a property that someone's not going to like, but to really find a great fit and provide a great experience as well, because it's much more important to us to have clients that continue to come back for their real estate needs and refer their friends and family over time as well. So we want it to be a good fit and to be a process that felt equally good.
I imagine in those circumstances, you are asking a lot of questions. So you have an understanding where this person is at.
Yep, and you'll learn over time too, when we do film a property that someone's not getting to see in person, really wanting to do a thorough job with that so that they can go back and review that video as many times as they'd like, ask any follow-up questions, and if there is something across the process too where they want to get back into the property before closing, just to figure out, what furniture should I take with me from halfway across the country, we can set up those items as well.
Yeah, it's a lot to consider, to say the very least. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking with Zach Pagel with Gwaltney Group-RE Results in this week for Robin Gwaltney, who we expect to talk to again next Saturday. And we're kind of touching on things you might want to consider if you're, looking to buy or sell a home during this upcoming spring market, which is always busy in the Rochester area. We'll return in a moment here on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96. Welcome back to Rochester Real Estate with Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE Results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andy Brownell along with Zach Pagel with Gwaltney Group-RE Results here in Rochester. Robin Gwaltney away from the microphone this morning. So we welcome Zach and his knowledge. And we've been talking about, I guess, things to think about as we march quickly towards the busy spring market in the Rochester area. On a more general sense, Zach, if I'm a person who's looking to buy, are there things I should, I guess, have in my mindset as I go into this market to be ready for?
It's a great question as well, and I think another one that we touch upon often because it is so important. is having a pre-approval in hand from a trusted lender. A lot of buyers out there are hesitant at the beginning of the home purchasing process and saying, really, I want to make sure that there's a property out there that's going to fit my needs. And once it comes on, if I like it, I'm going to contact a lender and I'll get pre-approved. It won't be any issue. And while most buyers that are purchasing, the pre-approval is not an issue, what can become an issue is timing. So a lot of great properties do move quite quickly, and being an organized buyer who's ready to offer right away can be the difference between getting a home or not, or avoiding a multiple offer scenario as well, if you're able to come in quickly with a strong offer on a property that you like.
So that's the first thing. Go get that pre-approval from a lender, and I know the Gwaltney Group is capable of connecting you with some fantastic lenders to get that process going. I've got the pre-approval. I've talked to you. Where do I go from there if I'm a buyer? Is this the time where you sit down and talk to me about what I want or what my expectations are, or do we just get out there and start looking around?
I think it is definitely a good call to connect on what's important in a home and what's important in an offer process as well. So I'd like to sit down with all my buyers and really talk through each individual section of the offer before we're ever at the point of making one. It's a lot easier to ask questions at that time and feel fully knowledgeable about what goes into that offer term-wise, so that when you have that DocuSign in your email at the time that you're excited about a property, you're not trying to rush through the process at that point. When we do have that conversation, we often set up buyers with online search portals as well that are fully customized to them. And that could be a huge benefit because it's providing accurate info directly from the MLS. Conversely, a lot of buyers do start out on something like a Zillow or Redfin and are disappointed when they reach out about properties that perhaps already have an accepted offer or have something else about them that isn't pulling through fully correctly within those services. So by having an online portal set up through us, we can avoid that. We can also make way more specific filters for buyers on what's important. So you could put specific schools in there. You could say, I want a property that doesn't share a well with a neighbor, or that has a fireplace on the main level and a half bath in the basement. It's just a lot more customization to make sure that the things that are being pushed through to you are a true fit for what you may be looking for.
And you mentioned the possibility of multiple offers, particularly in that, certain price range that homes seem to move really, really quickly in. And I guess, what do you tell the prospective buyer? How do you prepare them for that possibility that, going in, there might be a competition for this home?
I think there's a lot of different factors to think through with that. And the biggest one is really just what flexibility do you have if the perfect property does come on, in terms of what you're willing to do with your offer to place yourself in the best position to win. So we never, of course, want folks to regret if they didn't get a property because they would have been willing to do more in that offer. So really try to craft a strategy that, of course, someone's not overpaying for a property or doing anything with contingencies that they're uncomfortable with, but is doing exactly what's needed to win out in a multiple offer scenario. So great example from last week, had a buyer where a property came on late Thursday night. First showings were available Friday morning. We were the first showing in there. They were already pre-approved, knew what they wanted, knew that this property was a fit for them. So we were able to get an offer in within an hour of our showing. There was open houses scheduled for the next day, multiple other showings. But from crafting the right strategy and having talked about it for months beforehand, we were able to get that seller to accept the offer right away and cancel the open house and all those other showings on a property that definitively would have had other offers if it would have gone into the weekend for additional eyes to get on it. So can really make a huge difference and, of course, a very exciting result for that buyer.
That is awesome, yeah. And for the seller, too. They
didn't have to keep
avoid
getting
some
out of
of
their
the
house when it was quite cold and icy outside.
Go find a place to spend the afternoon. We're going to show your house. No, maybe this offer is good enough. You mentioned contingency. I suppose I remember back, a couple of years ago when things were, as Robin and I like to say, a bit crazy in the market with the, unbelievably and never to be seen again interest rates. Is it, I guess the timing of the closing is a contingency? Is it the inspection issue? What kind of things do you discuss?
Sure. So a lot of them really are around timing, as you mentioned, but some of them are just around providing assurances to a seller that the buyer is serious about closing on that transaction. So of course, in an offer, an item that pops up often is an inspection contingency. From a buyer's perspective, they're really wanting to make sure that the property doesn't have any major issues that would, be a surprise if they didn't perform that inspection. But where it can get a little bit complicated when comparing multiple offers is that, an inspection contingency should not be something that's used to walk away because there's a light switch that needs to be replaced or a dirty air filter and the air conditioner. And as the inspection language stands on its own, those are things that you could object to and technically walk away from a deal if you so chose. So one thing we do talk about with buyers is, if we're going to have an inspection contingency in there, what sort of assurances can we provide to the seller that, hey, we're only going to be using this if there's something we're asking for that is, for example, in excess of $2,000.
Sure.
And that can make a big difference if you have multiple offers at the same price that all have inspection contingencies because they're providing additional clarity to the seller on exactly what your intentions are.
Yeah, I can see that in a heartbeat. That it takes away that idea in the seller's head that somebody might use that as an excuse.
Yeah, or even in some cases, if a buyer found a different property.
Oh, sure.
An inspection contingency is something they can use to walk away from the original one, which as a seller, you definitely do not want to see.
Great information. We have to take another break. We'll return in just a moment. Newstalk 1340, KROC AM 96.9 FM. We're talking with Zach Pagel today with Gwaltney Group-RE results. Again, this is Newstalk 1340, KROC AM 96.9 FM.
We'll be right back with Robin Gwaltney and Andy Brownell on Rochester Real Estate. This is News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.
Stress.
Welcome back to Rochester Real Estate with Robin Gwaltney from Gwaltney Group-RE results and Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good morning. Welcome to Saturday on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. Andy Brownell along with Zach Pagel with Gwaltney Group-RE results. Robin away this week, but will return next Saturday. We've been talking about preparing for the spring market, which I know it's cold, but, we are just weeks away from the start of the spring market, at least real estate, as far as real estate is concerned. Zach, we've talked a lot about, being a buyer and being prepared. What if you're the seller of the home? What kind of steps could I be taking or talking about with you to make sure that my home is, I guess, attractive to buyers as we're coming up to the spring market?
Great question. So I think, again, proactive communication is really important to achieving the best overall result. A lot of people do say, hey, I'm just going to wait to contact an agent until the spring market is here and we'll figure it out at that time. But there's huge benefit in having a conversation now so that, as we talked about those off-market buyers, we can identify if there are some of those out there that might be a good fit for a property, especially because one of the biggest fears from sellers when deciding about whether or not to list is, what property am I going to go into next? And if your home's on the MLS and you get a great offer, but you don't have something lined up on the other end, it can be quite nerve-wracking. So when you don't have your property out there listed and you might have a couple pre-approved, strong off-market buyers coming through, you do have more flexibility to dictate your timing and terms to make sure that you aren't feeling rushed to find a property for your next place to move into.
Yeah, extraordinarily important. As far as the property is concerned itself, are there common things that a seller could, I guess, start working on physically, the property, to make it that much more attractive in the current market?
I can say, I know one great activity during winter here, especially these cold days, is decluttering. One of those things that I know it's easy, especially over living in a property for a long period of time, just to have a lot of extra stuff around.
Yeah.
So getting it out of the house and just making the house as show ready as possible is one great thing you can do at this point. A lot of people do get worried that, hey, is there projects I need to be taking on or remodel certain areas before I place the property on the market? So that is one good step, to talk to a trusted agent as well. Because a lot of the time, certain improvements are not necessarily worth doing before putting the property on the market, because buyers have their own tastes and might want to do something differently altogether. So we can help identify what are the easy items to take care of to maximize market potential, but also say, hey, you're going to repaint this entire room, but it's fine right now. Why don't we just leave it and figure out what a buyer wants?
And that's something you do with a walkthrough with the client. I imagine you walk through the house and take note of, hey, this pink wall.
That's correct. And it is, and properties someone lived in for a long time. One of the biggest items we see that could possibly use some updating is flooring. And that can become something sellers get worried about, because, you don't want to put in all new carpets and have that cost and then figure out what you're going to do with that. But one great thing we do offer to our clients is that we have trusted relationships with local vendors, such as flooring companies, that will come install all new carpet, LVP, etc., and not require payment until closing takes place on the property. So we can increase that market value by having that new flooring in there, but you're not having to come out of pocket during that time, which a lot of folks don't know, and it can make a huge difference to making that property stand out, especially amidst multiple inventory out there.
I bet, because chances are, if you do it correctly, you'll increase the value more than what the cost was. And in essence, better than a wash.
Yeah. And sometimes people have it put in and they're like, wish I would have done this a long time ago while I lived
here. That's it,
It looks so nice.
Robin and I have talked about that at length, that, these updates to your home and general maintenance things that people, put off until it's time to sell, and they could have enjoyed having that much nicer home for a period of time. So don't delay, right?
Exactly.
Don't let it, and the other aspect of that I was wondering about, you mentioned some things are not worth changing because this buyer's taste might be different than what you think it might be, especially colors. Is that something that's negotiable sometimes, that you can look at, I'm not going to do anything on the house, but I'm going to be up front and price it in such a way, or offer up an allowance to the buyer? Is that something that happens?
Absolutely. And an allowance is often the better way to achieve that, because, for example, if someone's purchasing a property and putting 5% down on a conventional loan, reducing the price of the property doesn't really help them have all that much more cash in their pocket besides saving 5% down payment on that price difference. But when you do it as a credit instead, that's direct cash that's essentially reducing the amount that the buyer will have to bring to the closing table, leaving them with those funds available to do the improvements themselves.
Awesome. Anything else you can think of as we kind of wrap things up today that sellers and buyers should be thinking about, other than calling you, obviously?
That was the one I was going to say. So I think that's a great start. And of course, whether someone is our client yet or not, we are always open to communicate and answer any of those questions that folks have. There's no pressure ever to buy a home or list your home, but we want to be a resource over the long term. So do appreciate anyone reaching out and love hearing from them.
And that leads to the next question. If they want to talk to you, Zach, how do they get a hold of you?
So my phone number is 715-573-4872, and that can be reached by call or text. I can also be reached by email at Zach, Z-A-C-H, at Gwaltney, Gwaltney Group.com.
Awesome, Zach. And, of course, the website's always available, which has phone numbers and email contacts as well, and that's GwaltneyGroup.com. Pretty easy to find. Thanks again, Zach, for being with us, and always great to talk to you, and we'll check in with Robin next week.
That's great. Thank you, Andy.
All right. This has been the Gwaltney Group RE/MAX Results program on Newstalk 1340, KROC AM, and 96.